What's up, everybody, to my review of Pathfinder Right of the Righteous. Now, a little disclaimer, this is not going to be edited or anything. I just want to spit my reviews. Like, I finished the game yesterday on my 100% playthrough, um, and that's that. I'm going to release next week, I'm going to release a full review with some spoilers, but I'll keep the beginning spoiler free. It's gonna be written down, so it'll have more structure to it and everything. This is more of my thoughts. The video is mostly for people if you're wondering like, oh, should I buy the game? Maybe not. I've heard it's really hard. Or if you liked Kingmaker or hated Kingmaker and you want to know what this game is about, or Baldur's Gate, or Pillar of Eternity, or Divinity Original Sin, or any CRPG for that matter, because I do think that this is the ultimate CRPG of the last decade. Definitely. It's probably, as a game, the best game I've played in the past like 5 years, but also one of the buggiest. So let's get into it, right? This game has some bugs, but it's really a love project, and you can see that the developers are actually doing patches like regularly, like once or twice a week. I'll have patches with little bug fixes that are being made, and they'll all put that on the Steam page. So if you're worried about the bugs, well, by the time you're watching this video, there's probably not that many anymore. When I say it was buggy, it's like in the first month the game was released, there were some game breaking bugs, or like action economy wasn't right because you were missing some actions or some things. It's not that bad anymore. The game is hard, however, if you've heard that right. It is hard because most games, most CRPG in general, won't let you attain the level of like godhood, where like level 20, right? Level 20 is basically you're impossible to kill, or you're really strong or whatnot. The game goes beyond that. It lets you get level 20 and then some more, because you get like mythic powers and whatnot. So the game has to be complex and hard because this is what it's set out to be. Most game developers, and I'm thinking back to like Baldur's Gate 2 or Baldur's Gate 1 or even Baldur's Gate 3 that's gonna come out, they don't let you go all the way to level 20 because, well, game design is really hard at that point. You either make the game too easy, make the game a puzzle, or make the game too hard. Now, what did Pathfinder do? I think they made it a mix of a puzzle and a bit too hard, but you can change the difficulty at any time, which I did during the last assault. You can change the difficulty literally anytime. There is no problem with that. So overall, the difficulty is not too bad. You have to read a lot, though. This game was made for people who just want to get into the story and never come out, and that it does. But the reading is insane, and it's not all voice acted because obviously there is a lot of line. The game, I think, took me maybe 120 hours, and that's like half of that was text reading and whatnot. You have spells, you have abilities, you have feats, and you have dialogue, obviously, and books and other stuff, items that all have text, and you all need to understand them. To begin with, Pathfinder is like the most hard D&D can get, and the game does it justice. So if you like complex stuff that you can really lose yourself into, doing hours and hours of reading, well, this game is probably for you. But then again, you probably already knew that, and you've probably played the game a lot. I do believe this game is one of the best game I've played, though. As my final thoughts for those who don't want to get into too much details, but I'll rebel on the game a little bit because I do have a lot to say. It's probably the first recent game that I've just played for 120 hours, and at no point I was like, man, this is too much. I kind of hate it, or the game is great, but the story is not great, or the story is great, but the mechanics are not great. Like, everything was awesome about it. For new players, I do recommend, however, a few tips and tricks, and if you've watched till here, for my opinion, well, you have it. It's probably a buy for me, even if it's not for you. But if you're a new player and you're still wondering, I will give you a few tips and tricks that might seal the deal, because it's not that hard of a game when you apply those things. First off, I'd play in turn-based mode. You can switch between the two. And I know some people really, 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 really like real time with pause, right? I just don't feel like that's it for me. Like, it's great, don't get me wrong. I just feel like turn-based, you miss so much less, right? Because the game is really hard, and let's be honest here, it's made harder with the longer you go on, and new enemies do stuff, and they do a lot of things at once. Like in one turn, a guy can kill all your party, and you will never know why if you're playing with turn-based with pause, because it's gonna happen in literally a fraction of a second. There's just gonna be like big lightning bolt, and half of your party is gonna be dead, and the chat log will be like flooded. So honestly, I do feel like turn-based mode is the better way to play the game, especially if you're a new beginner and you're not playing on like the easiest difficulties. If you are, that's great, because the game was made especially for that to happen. You can play however you like, and that's what I like about this game. I have playthroughs where I'm just like, because I want to do different mythic paths, so to unlock them, in some playthroughs, I literally just put on story mode and I rushed at the enemies head on, and that was great, honestly. But turn-based is probably the better way to understand the game, and if you're a new player, you probably want to understand the game as much as you can. The other thing I'll say is, when you're playing on turn-based, there is an option that will skip everybody's turn if they don't have anything else to do. The game just doesn't understand that you can do stuff at the end of your turn, like equip items and whatnot. So I would disable this and let myself end the turn manually with spacebar. This can become annoying, like for sure, but it's not the end of the world, and you will gain a lot of action that you think you just lost out of nowhere. Another thing that I'll talk about that I just thought about is the performance of the game. So my computer is pretty good. It's nothing great, but it's not too shabby, right? My specs are a pretty decent i7 processor that I don't remember what it is, and a 1070 Ti, I think, and like a 32 gig of RAM. So my specs aren't too bad, and the game sometimes would get choppy. If you watched any of my videos, you'll know that sometimes the game would just get choppy. If you kill an enemy, sometimes it would just freeze. I believe this is something they're gonna work on. I just don't know if they're gonna be able to fix it. With that being said, when the game gets choppy, if you do restart it, it fixes everything. The one problem is that you have to restart the game, and it's annoying and blah 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 and blah blah. But there is a fix, so it's not that big of a problem, I feel. And honestly, like, sometimes it's gonna take like 5 hours before it happens, sometimes it's gonna take 1 hour before it happens. I think it has something to do with the video RAM that's being overloaded, maybe. Regardless, it's manageable. It's not the greatest thing, and if you have a lower end console or PC or whatever, you might have real problem with the game. So I would try to see the bench. There is like a thing that's called can you run it or something, a website that basically like benches the game against your computer specs. I would do that before, for sure, because the game can become a bit hard to run. It's not the end of the world, but it's still worth noting, right? You don't want to buy the game and then you can't run it. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the mod support. So mods in general in games are really, really good or bad, because everybody can do anything. I believe that the developers of this game are pro mod. They're like mod friendly. Therefore, the game is mod friendly, which is awesome. With that being said, I think right now there's not too much going about, but in the future there will be, definitely. I haven't checked recently, but in the first like month or two, not much really came out. People were still playing the game, I'm assuming. But by the time you're watching this video, it'll probably be around the time where a lot of people are doing mod stuff, and it's gonna be great. Anyways, I've rambled long enough on this game. So I'm gonna give it like a few rankings differently because it's not the game for everybody, and those rankings might help you see if it's the game for you. So graphics and everything, I'd give it like a 6 or 7 out of 10. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. For story, I would definitely give it a 10 out of 10. For mechanic and everything, I would give it a 9 out of 10 just because Pathfinder is a really hard thing to emulate. Really hard. And they did it really well. Is there some bugs here and there? Yes, but this is an inevitability in Pathfinder. Just try playing on a paper, and you'll come out with bugs yourself because you can't count or whatever, like 13 d6s because you're a rogue and doing sync attack. Like overall for the mechanics, I'd give it like a 9 out of 10. Honestly, it's really good. The game is really hard. You can tell they love the game. You can tell they love the lore and everything. That's why the story is a 10 out of 10 and the mechanics are 9 out of 10. Soundtrack, 9 out of 10 also. The soundtrack was great. It made me feel powerful at times and made me feel sad at times, happy. I would say there are like clearly 1 or 2 soundtracks that are just better than the rest, but that's just how things tend to go with those things. For mod support, I'd give it like an 8. There's not much going on right now, but a few mods are really good to have, like Toybox and whatnot, and I'm sure the community will spring out whenever they finish the game, because it is a very long game, and they'll get to know what they need for the rest of the game. And for like content, maybe like items and whatnot, 10 out of 10. I can't really think of a better CRPG than this. This is probably the best CRPG of the last decade. And if you haven't played it yet and you're a CRPG guy or girl, go for it. There is nothing stopping you. You will not regret it. It is a good purchase. With that being said, I'll see you guys next time. And if you want to let me know what you think about the game, maybe it's different than me, maybe it's the same, let me know in the comment below. Like, subscribe, whatever you want. And I'll see you guys for some more Pathfinder and some more CRPG another time. See ya.